my friend Brian was one of the most popular kids in the grade. Being captain of the track team and serving on the student council certainly helped him out in this respect, but the primary reason why people loved him was his mischievous streak of creating puns. Brian was crazy about puns, and now that I think back, his obsession was extremely unusual. He started in freshman year, when he'd think up a usually cringy play on words that he would pass around the class. It quickly escalated from there. To him, puns were a religion, and he was the missionary. Each day, he'd go around shouting about the beauty of puns, and he'd grab any unsuspecting student to try to persuade him or her to join him in spreading a passion for puns throughout society. Of course, everyone thought he was only joking at the time, and lots of us actually encouraged him to think up new puns every day. So, Brian took it a step further. He gave us puns in real life. When we went out for ice cream together, he'd slip a pine cone into his pocket and place it next to the cone sizes on display.
See, small cone, large cone, waffle cone, pine cone.
Another time when he'd hung out at my house, he'd run up to me exclaiming,
Joella, there's a leak in your fridge. Better go fix it up.
And when I'd gone to check, I'd found that Brian had cleverly placed a leak right in the middle of my refrigerator. Brian's puns eventually became so legendary that everyone would be clamoring to find out what the next one would be. Brian would constantly be pestered with requests for puns, and he'd be overjoyed at the amount of attention that his jokes were getting him. But then it all went wrong. It was the first time Brian had ever gotten in trouble with the school administration. Brian's history class had gone on a field trip, and during lunch break, tons of adults had come to our supervisor, complaining about Brian's behavior. Although I wasn't there to see it, I heard later on that Brian had been seizing strangers off the street, asking them,
Do you want a kiss? Do ya? Do ya?
Once he'd gotten some answer, he pulled out a Hershey's Kiss out of his pocket, laughing his head off at the stranger's reaction. Apparently, the administration hadn't been too amused, and Brian was suspended and banned from future field trips. That incident started a decline to the popularity of both Brian and his puns. No matter how hard he tried, nobody wanted to have anything to do with his jokes anymore, seeing as his last pun had landed him a suspension. His pranks had grown such a notorious reputation that most of the kids at school tried to avoid even being seen with him in the hallways. Thus, as the weeks went by after Brian's Hershey Kiss incident, there was no news of a future pun. But everything changed at the last track meet. I'd never run or watched track, but Brian had convinced me to come watch him run the 100-meter at some state's competition. With him being shunned by the rest of the school and all, I felt like I had to go and make him feel better. It was one of those meets where the runners were given out numbers. The kid in lane 1 got a paper with the number 1 on it pinned to the back and front of his shirt, and as Brian was in the 7th lane, he'd gotten a paper with the number 7 on it pinned to his shirt. I'd only seen things like this done at marathons and professional meets, so I assumed it was some extremely important competition. If Brian did well here, I was confident that everyone at school would stop avoiding him. However, as the start to the 100-meter race grew nearer, there was no sign of Brian. In fact, 2 runners beside him were missing as well, and it seemed like the officials were trying to figure out where everyone had gone. That's when Brian called me.
Joella, you gotta come here, right now.
Hey, Brian, where are you? They might disqualify you, man. The race is starting in 2 minutes or something.
Joella, I don't care about the race anymore. I found the best pun. It's gonna bring all the popularity back. Come to the bathroom as quick as you can.
He hung up. Still clueless as to what Brian was up to, I rushed out of the stands and ran towards the bathroom. When I got there, it was clear something had happened. One of the runners, with the number 6 pinned on his shirt, was frantically backing out of the men's bathroom, which was covered in what looked like globs of red goo. That's when Brian walked out of the bathroom with a wide grin on his face. His own number 7 pinned on his shirt was covered in the same red substance.
Joella,
he called out when he saw me.
Why was 6 afraid of 7?
Why? I replied, backing away as I realized what Brian had done to achieve one final pun. He licked his lips and showed me a blood-stained paper labeled with the number 9.
Because 7, 8, 9.